So I want to clarify something in terms of biasy. And what I mean by that, or essentially, why is it that the anime community as of late happens to, for whatever reason, just completely look down on any and all aspects of like recognizing previous anime's contribution towards the art style, or even to go so far as to like not look at anything or recognize it simply because it does not happen to fit their preferences within the anime community. Because it's like no matter how much you speak to anyone that's a shonen head, most of the time a lot of them are people who got in the anime because of the big three. If you're talking to the current generation of people who like anime, but for the most part, the boom of anime itself was greatly influenced by the rise of Dragon Ball Z and its popularity, as well as Sailor Moon, who were the two big deal anime that came out back in the 90s, which realistically, during that era of people just going home and watching television, and like helped usher in that age of people who were just made it commonplace. I mean, it was to a point where Dragon Ball Z was just considered a cartoon. Oh, I'm also forgetting one. Now I apologize for that. Pokemon as well. But it was to a point where those three shows were considered just cartoons. So you had Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Sailor Moon. Um, and the thing is that this was before, if you weren't really in the niche of anime, which was basically people who only had the VHS tapes from the 80s, if you were able to get those, but they weren't things that were commonplace within the television scope. You you like realistically you didn't really get or see any other shows out there. That you weren't It was never referred to as anime. It just was cartoons. But after the arrival of the big three, during that time, you had the idea of anime, manga, different things like that. If you lived within certain areas in the country, and then you might have had the Anime Network, which was, I guess, produced by ADV Films. I'm not really sure if they were the ones who initiated or another company and whatnot, but they mainly only played ADV Films stuff. But I had the on-demand version of that because I was in Texas. But it uh it it boggles my mind nowadays where if you look at people who do like those I hate using this word, but those cringy fucking videos where they're like asking people in conventions and whatnot, what's a hot take on anime or something like that. And typically, what it is that they consider a hot take is that they don't like something like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto or One Piece, and that's not a hot take. That's a general preference. And it's like if I'm seeing a girl dressed up like someone from Demon Slayer and they tell me that they don't like Dragon Ball Z, I get why you don't like Dragon Ball Z. But at the same token, I'm pretty sure you've never even fucking watched the damn thing. I'm 100% sure you know of it. And the best thing you probably have as a rendition of its story is through secondary information, possibly looking at Dragon Ball Z Abridged, or you've played one of the games. And that's the game thing is a huge iffy, big iffy, especially from like female anime fans. But typically, they're not people who have watched all of Dragon Ball Z or all of Dragon Ball for that matter. And then you have what essentially within one of the main realms of the bias today is that the current generation of anime fans are people who tend to forego continuity, storytelling, or just overall plot and just character development for animation. Whereas like people will showcase and highlight different animation scenes, but then when it's like you ask them to explain why this is good, they lose their fucking mind. So it all boils down to this realm of where it's like I understand the biasy that comes from certain people. You don't know what it is that you're talking about. At the end of the day, that's kind of how you have to remind yourself when you're speaking to some of these people. The term Narutard is an actual term. I didn't fucking start that. That's a thing that was made. I heard that in passing as well. And it was like, oh, you're a Narutard. And it's like, what is that? damn, that is so disrespectful to people who like Naruto. But it's spot on because of the fact of how poorly constructed the series Naruto is. Upon upon reflecting on the series, I find myself incredibly disheartened by the fact that I wasted time even looking at it. I mean, I watched the anime, then read the manga, right? Like when I caught it, when the anime got to a certain point, it was like I was so interested in seeing what else happened. I started reading the manga, and I started reading the manga basically after when Gaara fought Naruto. That's when I jumped into reading the manga. It's like, and I never looked back. But it got to a point where it was like it was so outrageous to watch the anime that all I ever did was only read the manga because of all the goddamn fillers. But then upon reflecting on what it is that I even witnessed within the story, it just made me go, wait a minute, but they had this and it contradicts that and this contradicts that and this doesn't even make sense. These characters were all about this and then you had them do nothing. You killed Neji for no goddamn reason. What is this? What am I looking at? Oh, you did this plot line. Well, that's something everyone assumed you were going to do, but then you just did it. There was no real thought put into it. You just kind of kowtowed to what the fans wanted. And because that, it upsets me, and that's why, like on my previous video, I did the top 10 worst anime. You can look at that if you want to. But in my previous video, I basically stated that I consider Naruto one of the worst animes I've ever seen. And I stand on that. That video was not me joking around or anything. I truly mean the anime that I named as bad anime. But the identity behind me talking about the bias comes up from the fact that I had a lot of people comment on that video, on my short for that video that I made. And a lot of people commented on that video, and their main complaint was of the first 3 anime that I named, which was in order, because I went from the top 10, 1 being the worst, but 10 was Dragon Ball Super, 9 was Hunter x Hunter, and 8 was Naruto. And then and it's like now go into a slew of other anime that essentially were never truly mainstream, but they were anime that I have seen. I had comments on there like people were like, yo, he's never seen anything except for like 10 anime, and it's like that doesn't make any sense. But and it's like I have previous videos of me clearly discussing and talking about different topics in anime and whatnot, but it was something to where it was like I kind of understood the issue with the bias behind the anime community itself. You see, for most people who are typically into anime, as far as it like where you go to shonen heads and whatnot, I typically call them nigga anime fans because it's the most ignorant kind of fan that there is. They only are interested in one particular genre, and that's as far as their intrigue lies. Now, the issue with the anime community itself, or just with anime in general, is the fact that there's going to be a constant, steady stream of anime that fit that one particular genre. But if you're not interested in looking elsewhere, then your viewpoints towards the genre are always going to be very skewed. So you'll ignore shit to where it's like, all right, this character is clearly poorly written, or this story is making no sense, or is going in a wrong direction. And then you'll hear people say shit to go, well, that's just how shonen is, or that's just what a shoujo does, or that's just how seinen is, or that's just, this is just shoujo AI, or this is a shonen advanced or a shonen AI. So it's like, it's okay. Well, this is mature, so they're gonna be blood and guts and fucking. And then you have to understand or get to this point where you think about that and go, no, that's not an excuse. That's just you trying to make up for the fact that this sucks. So you don't want to admit that you're essentially looking at something that's terrible, or that you're invested in something that's terrible because of the fact that you feel you have to be invested into this because it happens to fit a specific viewpoint or specific genre that it is that you're interested in. And that's what's wrong. And that's where the problem comes in, because of the fact that you then have people who essentially will completely condone something strictly because it does not fit what it is that they currently are looking at or what it is that they want to look at. And so then because of that, they'll toss around the words, this is trash, or this is bad, or I don't want to see this, I don't want to do this. And you'll actually have stuff to where it's like, hey, everything that you probably want to see in a story or in an anime or whatnot, this show has it. But because this show isn't affiliated with this genre, you're not going to look at it. I literally have a friend who is hell-bent on looking at seinen. But at the same time, I like me and my brother, because it's funny as fuck, are constantly trying to get him to watch One Piece. And again, it's funny. At this point, it's a game, but it's funny because of the fact that if he ever actually looked at One Piece, he would understand. Because I know I've been around this motherfucker long enough to know his taste when it comes to anime and like just movies and shit like that. You know, we have similar tastes and opinions on things. That's why we're friends. But and it's like the stuff that he's truly intrigued in and things that he generally likes, fantastic world building, secrets and shit like that, to where it's like, you know, you're not even thinking about stuff on this level, but it's happening in the background. But it makes you raise your eyebrow, but it's like, even though the main plot is going on, you're still wondering, hey, what's that happening in the background? What they doing over there? And like, it's something that he's really keen on. And the thing is that One Piece has that in droves. It's amazing how much that has, and it's like, it's one of the best world building animes that ever existed, and literally the biggest anime in the world currently. But strictly because One Piece is not signing, he's not watching it. And I find that unbelievably outrageous, considering the fact that he's someone who also liked Dragon Ball. He likes Dragon Ball Z. He likes other things that have been within that realm of shonen, but he feels that, well, since I've matured, then that means my taste has matured, so I don't need to look at the kiddie shit. But the problem lies with the fact that the kiddie shit has also matured, as well as the more advanced and adult shit. Jujutsu Kaisen is a shonen. So is fucking Chainsaw Man. But these things are incredibly bloody, gutty, and crazy. You got Kaiju number 8 that's coming out. Now, I don't like it, but that's about to become an anime, and that thing looks beautiful. But that's a shonen. And the thing is that you can clearly see within the realm of anime that a lot of people who essentially dissuade or talk about this stuff happen to have this weird bias when it comes to actually looking at things. To where it's like, even though someone is recommending something to you, most of the time it's going off of feelings rather than the actual intrigue that someone would have for a series. And it's a constant problem within the anime community. Because it's like, hey, you should watch Demon Slayer. And it's like, why should I watch Demon Slayer? Because you watch anime. That's not a reason to look at it. And it's like, okay, what if someone is actually highly interested in animation? Then yes, you should probably watch Demon Slayer. You should probably watch Demon Slayer because of how pretty it is. But I'm someone who's deeply predicated towards lore, story, and character. You shouldn't look at Demon Slayer. Why? Because it has a terrible lore, story, and characters. It's really bad in that aspect. But it's pretty, so a lot of people tend to push that to the forefront because the current anime fandom is in the realm of only accepting things that happen to be pretty. There are a lot of anime that exist or are out right now that are just shoved out. And despite the fact that the manga is incredibly detailed, drawn, or well respected, or anything like that, it got to a point where they only want to see it pretty. So the studio that might be behind it might not be able to facilitate the actual look that that manga deserves or is required to have in order to truly come across as the great thing that people respected within the manga. But you're not going to get that because it's so prevalent to just shove out as much anime as you possibly can now, because people are so readily to see this content that shit gets fucked up. Look at what's happening with Solo Leveling. Solo Leveling is a Korean webcomic that is getting screwed over right now. Man, is it getting screwed over because of the fact that it's being handled by people who don't understand the storytelling elements within Korean webcomics. They're fucking around because this ain't their shit. It ain't Japanese. So because of that, they kind of look at it with because the Japanese have always done that towards Korean comics. They really have. And now you have basically a huge bunch of people essentially looking at this shit and being told, this is the big anime of this season. This is the thing everybody wants to look at. This is the thing that everybody is totally into. And in the beginning of the year of, 2024, the big anime right now is Marshall. And the reason Marshall is the big anime is because of its goddamn opening. Its opening transcended language barriers. That's how good of a song that anime has. And then people got into watching Marshall because of that. And it's like, hell, even I watch Marshall, and every time I turn it on, whenever a new episode drops, I watch it from the very beginning, and I don't skip the opening because the opening's a banger. And I love it. But I already was a fan of reading Marshall, so it works out that way. But that thing transcended as far as an anime above Solo Leveling, despite Crunchyroll being someone that's a proprietor of shelling out anime, trying to tell you that their anime, Solo Leveling, is the big thing everybody wants to talk about. It ain't. They'll keep shelling it because they paid for it, but it's like, that ain't what happened. And you have moments like this to happen with anime where it's like the thing that everyone assumed was going to be the popular thing gets overshadowed by something that kind of was a surprise smash. Spy X Family did this to Chainsaw Man. Let's not forget, Chainsaw Man was supposed to be the next big shonen that everybody wanted to scream and talk about, and it did not work out, and it was beautiful how it did not work out. But the fact remains that essentially, how many people do you think like haven't even read or heard about Spy X Family until that basically the beauty of it finally got recognized when it came out as an anime, and that people were able to actually see it and then look at it and then fall in love with it. I mean, it's about to get a goddamn movie now, which an original movie, which generally doesn't happen. A lot of anime don't do that. They don't get an original movie. That stopped being a thing years ago. They did that back in the 2000s. Everybody got like some kind of a movie that came out of Japan, and you would see them in DVD stores or whatnot. But it was rare that you would get a movie that essentially does not take place. Well, nowadays that isn't something that basically where it's like it's a condensed concept of an arc, much like what Demon Slayer did, and then they just put that in film. I mean, they just put that in theaters. Aside from like some of the bigger anime that have already been pumping out movies, much like One Piece. Now it's like when something says that they're having a movie, and then that movie is actually getting shown in America as well. It's like, damn, that's a big fucking deal. And then they also make a lot of money. So it's one of the things that you have to think about, Corey. Is like it kind of proves my point towards the bias. And it's like, how many people feel as though they only particularly watch one specific kind of anime or whatever. They have a specific genre that they look into or things that they care to see. And then you at least heard about Spy X Family, or you've heard people recommend watching Spy X Family. And then you might have actually looked at Spy X Family, and then you love Spy X Family, despite the fact that it doesn't fit those little genre requirements that you have for yourself in your viewing pleasure. Don't you understand that bias is keeping you from looking at or appreciating other bodies of work that essentially could fit that same realm? Shit doesn't have to become the next big thing in order for you to be interested in it. You could just be interested in it. Even my disdain for Naruto and whatnot, one of my like hard stances towards that series is that if someone tells me that their reason for liking Naruto or their reason for it being their favorite anime is because of the fact that it was their first anime that they got introduced into, which happened for a lot of people. It's an anime along with the big three that started a generation of fans in the realm of anime. So it might not be the best anime to them. It might not be the one that they consider like creme de la creme or like the holy grail of anime, but it was their first anime, and because of that, they love it more than anything else. I cannot dissuade you from that. There's nothing I can say about that can take that feel or that notion that you had upon you looking at Naruto, and I never would want to take that away from you. But if you come at me and say some shit like, "Oh, it's better, it's a much better story than Dragon Ball Z," bitch, we're gonna have something to talk about, because it's not. But if it's your favorite because it was your first, hey, more power to you. You know, hey, just everyone still has that special feeling in their heart for the ones who pop their cherry. I get it. I totally get it. But you have to understand that all I'm trying to say is that in the realm or in the wake of what anime is currently doing, and they're doing some fucked up shit, and they're kind of fucking up royally, because Sony is going to screw everybody over as soon as once what's going on with Crunchyroll and Sony and Funimation, it's going to screw over so many people in the realm of anime. It's going to get so much worse before it even gets better. Despite all of that, you really need to open up your perspective when it comes to actually viewing and looking at anime. I'm not saying that you should try to watch every fucking thing. That's crazy. That's insane. But I am saying is that to step out of your shell of assuming or believing that, hey, I only watch what's hot. I only watch the thing that's trending. I only watch the thing that everyone's talking about. I just happen to be a fan of One Piece and only One Piece, and I don't really care to look at anything else. That just seems very disheartening for the industry of anime, because like I love it and I hate it at the same time. I have my problems with it, but at the same time, I still actively look at anime currently. So I feel as though if if you want to help anime, if you like anime, then you should do yourself a service and just go out of the realm of like, hey, sometimes look at things that you probably wouldn't normally look at. Look at something that has just a little bit of what it is that you like within a series. Maybe you're looking at something that might misrepresent it, much like my anime list. I don't like going to my anime list to look for new things to watch. I tend to actually watch things based off of the summary or the description of the anime or just clips that they might show. Because of the fact my anime list happens to be a site that tends to misgenre stuff a lot. Much like a lot of different manga websites you might go to read or scans and stuff like that. It happens, you know, and it's like, it happens, but it's like, you probably missed out on something simply because you were looking up one specific genre to view, but you weren't able to see it because it was misgenred. And so then it's like, hey, like you probably missed out on something, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that it's not something that someone can recommend to you. It just means that you missed it, you know? But it's like, at some point in time, you might catch on to it. At some point in time, you might be able to fall back on it or whatever. But it's like, if you never put yourself in a position or you gave yourself that mindset to be open to just, hey, this seems interesting, I'm going to give it a look. And then essentially you find that thing that you missed all these years ago or all that time ago because it was misgenred, then you will never experience stuff like that. I mean, fuck. The one of my go-to things that I like to look at is essentially mysteries. I like mysteries, but at the same time, I'm not someone who is predicated towards looking at something that's completely overdrawn or blown out. Yet I looked at clips from the anime Another, and I fell in love with the damn thing. But the problem with that is that I recommend Another to people who go like, well, if you're cool with seeing these kids die and an okay mystery story, then yeah, look at Another. But I have to warn you, it's not really a series that you'll kind of want to revisit, because not even I do that, and I fucking downloaded the damn thing. But still, I enjoyed watching it. I still recommend it to this day, and it's like, hey, Another is a good thing to look at. But after you look at it, that's kind of it. But say something like Higurashi When They Cry, it's like, if you're not into torture porn, then no. I'd say stay away from that. But, you know, to each his own. So it's always one of those things where it's like, yeah, I feel that looking into anime, which already is a niche genre of artistic fervor in itself, and it's something that most people jump into with an open mind. For whatever reason, it's weird how close-minded people get once they fall into the plot, not the plot hole, but into the potholes of liking anime and manga. And it's like you just find yourself really confined to this weird straight-laced way of viewing everything, to the point where you find yourself defending something only because you just truly like it. Not listening to the points that someone is making about it, but just strictly because you like it and they said that they don't. You gotta defend it. You gotta defend it. But it's like, well, what about the points that they're saying? Do they make sense? Are there reasons to not like it? Is there things that you probably never questioned before or anything like that? And it's like, why are you this adamant towards just going at somebody like this when realistically you yourself have already kind of put yourself in this box of only liking something like this while they're coming at you with this grand perspective? I'm like, hey, I've seen a lot of anime, and compared to those, this doesn't really stack up. It's weak in this element. It's not really that fun or engaging in this. Well, I only watch shonen, and I only watch seinen, and Death Note, there's so much with writing. It's like, well, Nier and Mello are kind of really lazily done, don't you think? L was amazing, but Nier and Mello, it was kind of like, no, it's perfect all around. Well, the manga ended the way it was personally more satisfactory towards how Light Yagami should have died rather than the anime, which kind of tried to give him a farewell send-off. No, shit like that is basically the back and forth that happens within the anime community. And I personally don't like it. I don't like it because, like, yeah, nothing's gonna get accomplished, nothing's gonna get done. And it's like, by all means, I'm not gonna sit there and just let someone call me a dumbass. But at the same token, it's like, in retrospect, I look back on those arguments and conversations, and I go, you know what? I was arguing with somebody who just could not be convinced otherwise about something that they gave no clarification behind. And it's like, yeah, I'm talking smack about Naruto. And it's like, yeah, because I don't like it. But at the same time, my reasons for not liking it are concrete. I've looked at the series. I know what the series is. I've I talk to people who frequently bring it up multiple times, but I don't like it based off of point A, B, C, D, and I can clearly tell you what it is that I don't like. But I'm arguing with somebody who's just going, I like it though. And it's like, well, am I wrong in my assessment? But I like it. Well, that's not an argument. That's just you being defensive. You know, it's just you being obstinate. Like, there's no talking with people like that. Hell, me saying Dragon Ball Super is terrible. I've had a bunch of people in my comments telling me that, like, I obviously like the Dragon Ball series ain't all it's cracked up to be. And it's like, Dragon Ball Super ain't the Dragon Ball series. That's its own different fucking show. It's its own different. The manga's different from the show. So if I say that the show is bad, I'm talking specifically on that show, because there's a difference between Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball GT. So get the fuck out of here. And it's like, never say anything wrong with them. I consider Dragon Ball Z the greatest anime of all time. And that's because of its accolades. Not because of just animation, story, plot, and all that, and characters, but because of what Dragon Ball Z accomplished. That's why I consider it the greatest. And it's like, on top of that, it has story, plot, characters, and all that shit. But that's neither here nor there. So all I'm saying is that I feel as though people have this tendency to be incredibly biased towards their viewpoints within anime and manga. And the only reason that it's like that is because they're incredibly stagnant from the content that it is they're currently looking at. Most anime and manga tend to copy the same plotline, storylines, characters, development, even social hierarchy structures that you'll see from one will generate over to another. So you're comfortable in seeing the same thing, but at the same time, you kind of find yourself being bored with them doing the same shit over and over and over again. And rather than you yourself move away from that aspect, you tend to just fall into a rut to where you accept what it is that they give you because you just bottle it up and just excuse whatever it is that they show you as that's just how it is. And that's a bad way to look at content or to enjoy yourself or to even claim that you're doing something for fun. I mean, it already is what's ruining the gaming industry, and anime has been doing it for years now. So all I'm asking is that you just open up your eyes and just go read, watch, or find something else to look at that doesn't fit that which you're comfortable with. You might like something. You might like something else. You might find something that's worth a damn that you probably didn't even know was. That's it.